Without further ado, I will introduce you to Chris Hockley from BT, who is going to talk to us about the digital home phone switchover. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so my name is Chris Hockley. I work for BT Group, so that technically covers BT, EE and PlusNet, so all three brands under one. And I am one of the digital voice engagement managers, so I look after the east of England, London and the southeast, and it's my job to effectively talk about the upcoming change to the landlines. So we will be doing a Q&A session at the end for anything that you might have after kind of running through, but hopefully there are no questions that we're not able to answer for you today. So digital voice is basically BT's name for a digital phone service, and all it is in simple terms is that calls are made over an internet connection rather than over the old analog service. Now that old analog service, the first exchange opened in around 1880, and the telephone service as it exists today has basically been in circulation with no changes for about 45 to 48 years. And the service simply kind of isn't able to keep up with the demands of today, and the technology itself is effectively failing. It's often considered this perfect system that never goes down, and unfortunately with about 2 million fewer people using the service last year, faults are up year on year. And it's no exaggeration to say we're actually having to pull people out of retirement to work on services in their sheds to keep the analog service kind of working. Yeah. So it has to be replaced. It's not one of those things of it might fail, it's expensive to keep running. It is literally breaking, and without it there are so many services that run on the analog network that would effectively break. So we have to move it, and we have to move it to a digital service. But the landline itself isn't going anywhere, so it is not being taken away. All we are doing is changing how the calls are being transmitted. And for most people that have broadband, so if you have broadband today, and I'll cover those people that don't, all it does is you change where your phone is plugged in. So instead of your phone plugging into a phone socket in the wall, it plugs into exactly the same socket on the back of your hub or router. And this is pretty much what every provider all over the country is doing as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're with BT, Sky, Virgin, they all put phone sockets on the back of their hub. And if you don't have a socket on the back of your hub, they will send you a free hub or router that does in order to make that work. So because this change is being done to you, what we ensured was that I guess the most important reasons that people keep their landlines are kept exactly the same. So if you remember, 3 things stay exactly the same. Same phone, same number, same cost. So if we have to move you to the digital phone service, the first thing is your number stays the same. You don't have to get a new number. The only difference with your telephone number is it now becomes the full 11 digits, including the area code. So you have to add the area code before you dial any number. Me, for example, I have to do 01268 before I dial any number or before anyone calls me, but your landline number stays exactly the same. The second thing around cost, so there is no increase in cost of moving to the digital service, and whatever you pay for your phone or phone and broadband service today, we will protect that and you will pay exactly the same when you move to the digital service. And that is even down to your call packages. So if you pay for unlimited weekend calls, evening calls, whatever it is, we will protect that. It also won't affect where you are in your contract. So if you're out of contract, you'll remain out of contract. If you're halfway through, you will stay halfway through. And the final thing that stays the same is phones. So you will be able to still use the same telephones that you have today as long as they've been purchased within about the last 30 or 40 years. The exception to that is the old rotary phones, but basically if you pick up your phone and have a dial tone, it will work. So you don't need to get new handsets. However, moving to digital is a bit like when TV switched over. You know, we're able to still deliver the same core service, but we can actually enhance it. And moving over the internet gives us more options around making sure the line is more secure, preventing more scam calls, improving the call quality, and a lot of the features that have been available on mobiles for a long time, we're now able to actually deliver to landlines. So, for example, you no longer have a flat engaged tone. So if you are on the phone and someone else calls you, it's no longer just a flat line is engaged. They can leave a voicemail if they wanted to, kind of directly on the phone, or if you've got more than one handset, you can actually have 2 calls going simultaneously, either 2 incoming calls or 1 incoming, 1 outgoing, or 2 different outgoing calls. And then little, I guess, quality of life features, you can do 3-way calling now, so you can have calls with 3 different people, and like I said, voicemails included for free, so little quality of life improvements whilst ensuring, I guess, the core features that everyone really wants stays exactly the same. Now, on the phones themselves, we've made sure that the system will work with either corded or cordless handsets. So if you have, say, a traditional corded handset on the far, your left there, even if it draws power from the phone today, it will still work plugged into the socket on the back of the hub. It will do everything that your phone did today as well. So if you've got an answering machine on that phone, it will do that. If you have one of these devices that forces people to announce who they are before it lets it ring, they'll work as well. Now with hands or cordless phones or hands-free phones, usually in a matched set, there is one phone which is the master or main unit. It's usually the one that has a bigger base in the answering machine. As long as that unit is plugged in to the hub, the others will work as they do today. So again, even with a matched set of handsets, they will work. But we have created some digital handsets. So these aren't essential, but they are discounted at point of upgrade. So if you've gone, well, I've had the same phone for 17 years, the battery dies all the time, I do want some new handsets, you can get them digitally. These are hands-free and you can add to them as you go. So you don't have to buy 4 to start with, you could just buy 1, add another one, and they work. And then lastly, what we offer that no other network does, so pretty much everyone else gives you 1 socket on the back of the hub, and that is your phone socket. If you had phones elsewhere around the house that are maybe corded, they would say tough. What we offer are these digital voice adapters, and they go into any 3-pin plug socket in your house. They can go into extension splitters or any 3-pin power socket. All they have is a little phone socket on top of it. So any corded phone you have around your house that isn't necessarily near to your broadband hub, you'll be able to plug your phone into that and still use it. And we give one of those away for free as well to any customer that uses it. So that gives you 2 physical sockets. So 2 corded phones, or if you've got, say, a corded and some hands-free phones, you can do a mix and match of the 2 of them as well. Now, when we've moved it digital, we're able to reduce the number of scam calls that get through. So we can automatically detect, for example, when calls originate from outside the country, but they pretend to be someone in this country. Or if banks, for example, give us their verified numbers, then we are able to see if any number that is claiming to be that company or trying to spoof that number, and we're able to display on any home phone that can display text, warnings that might say telemarketer, suspected scam, or in the most case, just block the calls from going through. So at the moment, we're blocking about 17 to 20,000 scam calls a day. And that is with about half the UK on the service. And we're also flagging and blocking around 160,000 spam calls. But the great thing is the system actually learns by people using it. So the more that people report numbers as scams, the more that information is actually disseminated to everyone. So everyone gets the benefits of more and more people using it. And the system will continue to get more accurate as we go on, and as more people use it, it will become better going forwards. Now the big limitation, and this is the one that a lot of the newspapers have kind of latched onto, is the service does require power. Now in simple terms, it's because it's running through your broadband, so if your broadband hub or router has no power, you are not able to make or receive any calls, and that includes the emergency services. However, for a lot of people, the landline is their primary emergency contact line. You know, they might not have a mobile, they don't want a mobile, and so we have to provide customers with the ability to still use their landline to call the emergency services. And this is something that all providers have to do. They have to give you some way of doing that if you are dependent on your landline, and we do it in one of 2 ways. Now, because EE and BT are all together, we can make use of the mobile network for one. So this option on the left is a hybrid phone. So it is a traditional corded telephone but hidden inside of it is basically a very simple mobile phone. So if you're in a complete power cut, it has an internal battery, you pick up the phone to dial the number, it will use the mobile network to make sure that that call goes through. And with emergency calls, we use whichever network is strongest. So even though that comes with an EE SIM card in it, if, say, the Vodafone signal happened to be stronger in your house when you call 999, it will use that Vodafone signal to make sure your call goes through. And we're also able to provide the same sort of location identification to the emergency services. So if you do call, they're able to use the mobile signal to pinpoint where you are, rather than just relying on knowing where your landline is to the address. In areas where perhaps there is no mobile phone signal, or that they have other devices that might rely on their landline, we offer a battery backup. Sometimes called a UPS. Instead, it's basically a car battery in a box, and all it does is, in the event of a power cut, it keeps your internet on. So it powers your hub or your router up to about 4 to 5 hours. So again then, because your hub is on and you're still receiving an internet connection, you would still be able to use the phones that are plugged in to the device. Now, the key thing that some of you probably jumped into in the middle is that both of these options are completely free to 4 different categories of customers. We say they are landline dependent, but they are anyone that's over 75, anyone with any registered disability or additional need flagged to their provider, anyone with Telecare or healthcare pendant, so pull cord, wrist sensor, pendant, anything like that. And then finally, anyone that is landline only. So if you depend on your landline and have no other way, we have to offer you one of these options for free. And we will also send round an engineer that will come and set it all up for you as well for free. So you won't be expected to plug the battery in, someone will come, will set it up, and will transfer all the service over for you. Now, there's always one of these questions. If you have already been moved and you weren't offered one of these things, you can retrospectively ask for it. So say, for example, if you're perfectly fine, but then you develop cataracts and your vision suddenly goes, well, then you are now qualified as visually impaired. So you could then register and say, look, I wasn't before, I now have visual impairments, I need my landline because it's the only thing I can get to. That would then be retrospectively sent out to you for free as well. So regardless of kind of what happens. Now, on new battery backup, so those are the 2 options. We've just kind of launched a brand new one that's been developed in partnership with Vodafone. So this was a challenge put to us by the government, that we needed to ensure that the battery backup was the best in class it could be for people. And so the new battery, I guess the key feature that it has is it's got a 25% reserve. So at the moment, it gives you about 4 to 5 hours of continuous use in the event of a power cut. But, what happens if your power cut lasts for 8, 9 hours or a day? So what this battery does is, when it gets down to 25%, it effectively shuts down and will keep that remaining 25% for about 2 weeks. So if at any point in an extended power cut you do need to make a call, that 25% reserve power is always there for you to be able to use in the event of an extended power cut. But in most cases, as soon as the power comes back on again, these batteries top themselves back up to fully charged, so that they're always there, they're always ready to go going forwards. The other thing I wanted to touch on just quickly with the hybrid phones, they do have minutes preloaded on them for non-emergency services, emergency contacts. So for some people, for example, 999 isn't the first number they would call in a power cut. It could be a carer, it could be family, to say, look, my power's gone out. So we make sure that these phones are also shipped with 100 minutes loaded on them, so that no matter whether you need to call 999 111 or just your family, you've always got those kind of minutes on there to do it. They are refreshed as well, so we do always make sure you have those 100 minutes. But for legal reasons, they are monitored. Because what we don't want people to do is, oh no, my power's gone out, I'll just call Betty down the road for a bit of a chat for an hour and then plug it back in again. Oh, the power's back. So we do monitor it, make sure it's used for emergency services. But like I said, both of these are there. They're available, I guess, for different user cases. So like I said, the battery will primarily be used for any customer that has Telecare, because their device might also rely on the landline. And anywhere there is a mobile signal, the hybrid phone is probably better. Because today, for example, if someone, a road worker cuts through the telephone line, that would kind of knock everything out. This phone would still work even in a broadband or complete power outage as well, because it uses that mobile signal. Now, there is often some confusion with this program that it is linked to fibre. And I guess the reassurance that I give you is digital voice will work on any broadband that is currently provided to your property. So it will still run on copper. The only limit to that is if you have incredibly slow broadband, so about 2 megabytes per second or less, then we would not move you to this digital service running through your broadband until either fibre is made available to you or something else is. So if your broadband is faster than 2 megabytes per second, even if it's copper, this will still work. However, what we are doing is that any customer that lives in an area where Openreach fibre is available, we will offer you a free fibre upgrade at the same time. The idea being it will reduce the disruption, so you're not having to have 2 different appointments, one for your broadband, one for your phone. We'll do it all at the same time, and that will be available. At the moment, we've got 50% of the UK currently covered, but as it becomes available, you will be offered an upgrade to fibre for free, but they're not dependent on each other. Whatever broadband you have, you will still be able to use the service. There'll also be no impact on your broadband speed. So the amount of internet that a call makes, in say in comparison to just browsing a website, is tiny. So there'll be no impact on your broadband speed or your television or anything else provided in your property. It's just the phone service. And then on the mobile network, because more and more things are using mobile as a backup now, you know, think of smart meters or kind of alarm systems that are using them now, coverage is becoming more and more important. We're already at 99% population coverage, and pretty much everyone is. But the big thing that everyone's fighting over at the moment is geographical coverage. So we're currently at 80% geographical. And as that increases, which it has to because the emergency services use the mobile network, and like I said, more and more things are using it as a backup. So we expect by the time we actually get to the deadline of the phone switchover of January 2027, there will be hundreds, if not thousands, more masts with increased coverage. So those hybrid phone options will become actually more of an option for more people. So this is to reinforce those 5 categories, the 5 categories that we consider landline dependent. So if you fall into any one of these categories, then you get the backup service for free and you get the engineer to come and do it as well. So as I've already alluded to, so if you live in an area with absolutely no mobile phone signal at all, you are dependent on your landline. Registering your additional needs or vulnerabilities, and there are several ways you can do that. So you can literally just contact your provider on 150 from your home phone to register your additional need. You don't have to wait. There are often some services that are just available in general. You know, if you do have sight issues, for example, we offer Braille, large print, and audio CD for your bills. And large print is free, whereas if you want paper bills for most companies, they'll charge you. So you can register for that now. We also have discounted broadband packages for anyone on, say, universal or pension credits. So it's never kind of too early to register your additional need with your provider. Telecare is one that gets a lot of focus, and I'll cover that in a bit. Elderly customers, as defined by Age UK, as over 75. So that is any customer over 75 with their date of birth registered will receive the backup for free. And then finally, those that are landline only, as they do depend on their broadband, on their landline. Now, everything I've covered up to this point is for those that have broadband. So you have a hub, you have a router today, you've got something that provides it, but there are about 500 to 600,000 customers that do not have any form of broadband at all. And what I mean by that as well is, I don't mean broadband with one company and landline with another. This is just a landline, nothing else. Now for those, the impact is even less. So we will not force people that don't have broadband to start taking broadband and have to pay for broadband. What we have to do, because you don't have a hub in your house, we have to install what is effectively a giant one in the exchange. So we fit a technology in the exchange that does all the digital conversion there. And what that means for your landline only customer is nothing changes in your house, no change to where your phones are plugged in. Your service will work in a power cut if it does do today, And the only difference you will experience is you will need to dial the full 11 digits rather than the local 6-digit numbers if you wanted to, but that is the only difference. So yeah, no one will need to come and you won't need any of those backup options that I've already covered. I guess with your split service, so if you do happen to have your landline with BT but your broadband with another provider, you will probably be in a good place because you will get 2 offers. You will get Virgin saying, bring your phone service over to us, we'll include it all in your package. Or you'll have BT contacting you saying, I'll bring your broadband over to BT and we'll include it all in one package as well. But you can no longer have that split service because your phone service is going through your broadband. So whoever provides your broadband must also provide your phone service. But yeah, landline only. We give them 4 weeks notice, so you'll get 4 weeks notice before we do it, but it's a bit like waiting for a package. We'll say between 10 and 2 your phone service will be down. Now realistically it's actually about half an hour, but we can't guarantee at what point during that window your house will be get to because they literally work through one at a time. You could be the first, in which case your phone will be back on in 30 minutes, you could be the last. After the work is done, you then receive an automated call that goes, right, you've been done, you're now digital. Please remember to dial the full 11 digits, and that's it. That's all they will experience. Their price will stay the same, their contract will stay the same, but that is it. Also for any landline-only customers, any other technology they have plugged into their phones, so if they do have Telecare or anything like that, that will also continue to work as well. So we've got an option for landline customers and one for those that do have broadband. So that's, I guess, the what. The how is quite important. So this program started in about 2017. The original deadline was December 2025, but due to involvement of the local government, quite rightly, that deadline was extended until January 2027, I guess, to make sure that service providers had enough time to support those that are truly dependent on their landline. And they hold all providers to the same standards. So there are about 650 different internet service providers in the country. All of them have to meet a certain set of criteria that the government has put in place. Now, there are some specifically focused around Telecare, and the reason that gets so much attention is that is a risk to life. You know, if you fall and push a button and nothing happens, that is a serious risk to life. So we need to make sure that those with Telecare are kind of supported with a level of beyond. But I guess the readiness checklist is before we were allowed to move any group of customers, we had to prove our comms was inclusive and available in alternate formats, that battery backups were available, that we'd reviewed with charities and had data sharing agreements in place with local authorities. So we had to meet a set of criteria, and it was only upon meeting that criteria that the government then allowed us to continue to move. So everyone we've done up to this point has been in cooperation with government, and the next cohort of customers that we're looking to move will also be based on those. We also worked with a variety of charities that represented those that most depend on their landlines. So we have partners with RNID, RNIB, and we do have an agreement with U3A as well. Scope, Age UK, basically anyone that represents the voice of those that are dependent on their landline, they have been involved throughout the programme to make sure that things like our comms are easily readable and we're not, waffling in tech speak that means nothing to everyday people. So we've kind of worked through and just made sure that every step of the process people have been involved. Now for anyone that does have Telecare, as I already alluded to, you're in one of the categories that qualifies you for the free backup and the free engineer visit, but we offer kind of like a visit plus for Telecare users, and what they will do, because some Telecare devices rely on your telephone service, the engineer that comes to set up your phone will also move your Telecare device. Now, they will test not only your phone service, but also your Telecare alarm. And if anything is not working in that process, they undo everything. So they down tools, they reverse you back to an analog. And what they will do at that point is they will flag with either your local authority or whoever provides the Telecare to say, look, this alarm isn't compatible. This person needs to be prioritised for either an upgrade to their house alarm, to their Telecare alarm system, or we will not move them until we've had confirmation that that service will work. So we cannot, and we have to report to Ofcom weekly, we cannot have any customer without a discontinued Telecare system. So they will be extra careful. You know, we even have had to put in process for customers that might not, say, be aware that they have Telecare devices. So if an engineer comes to someone's house who hasn't announced they have Telecare, and they might see a pull cord kind of coming out the ceiling, unless that customer can confirm it's compatible, the engineer will down tools and leave. So they won't risk it. We've had to kind of put a zero tolerance policy to say, look, if there is any doubt, do not do it, do not move them. But we are only as good as the information that we have. So we have worked with every local authority across the country on data sharing agreements, and all that is they share with us who they have on records as having a Telecare device. And we ensure those customers are flagged on our system so that we know what the local authority knows. We have also looked at any customer that has called an alarm monitoring centre as well. And we've also worked with private providers, but there is still more to do. And so we actually launched a campaign yesterday that is in national TV. I think we're on Lorraine in the morning. And it'll be on buses, newspapers, everywhere, TV for the next 6 weeks, with a super clear message that is just all about, if you have Telecare, tell your provider. Super clear message. We've done as much as we can on our end, but to put that extra step in place, get in touch with whoever provides your telephone and tell them you have Telecare. Now, if you're with BT, you should have, if you already have Telecare, we have written to every single Telecare customer we have on record saying, we know you have Telecare, there is no point to call us. This has been done, again, in joint partnership with VMO2 and the UK government as well, so a bit like the digital TV switchover, so it is kind of completely independent. And this information, again, has been shared with pretty much every charity that we can get our hands on to ensure that wherever people may go to get their information, they will find a consistent, clear message around Telecare. Now, for everyone else, up until this point, we have only been moving customers that did not have a registered vulnerability or additional need, no Telecare flagged, under 75, and initially we only started with those customers that didn't use their phone at all. So we started with low-risk customers, and then we moved up to those that still don't have any of those categories, but use their phone a bit more, and we've been kind of working through going from less usage to highest usage. But we've still been excluding those customers where we know they have one of those categories and that classifies them as landline dependent. Now, again, up until this point, we have been moving people all over the country. So there is no, oh, when are you coming to Peterborough? We have been moving every customer that sits in those groups all over the country as we've gone. Now, what is different is that from spring, read that as probably late June at this point, we're rolling out regionally to those that now have registered disabilities and additional needs. And the reason that we're able to do that now is, say, RNOB and RNID and Scope have all reviewed all of our accessible comms to make sure they are available. And we are starting to move customers that do have that, but we're doing it regionally. And the reason we're doing it regionally is so that we can provide more focused support with local authorities and local charities for customers that depend in that area. So, for example, you'll see that East of England will be one of the first. The reason we're able to move this area first is that we have great relationships with the local authorities here, with U3A, with other charities kind of in the area as well, to just make sure that the support is there. Obviously, every customer will automatically be given that engineer visit, will automatically be sent out all of the backup equipment they qualify for as well. But by the end of autumn, we will have started to move every single customer in the country. Now, that gives us 13 or 14 months before the January 2027 deadline. So we've made sure we've given ourselves enough of a buffer to fully support everyone that needs it throughout that change before we get to that January 2027 cut-off date. Now, if you're selected to move, everything is primarily in writing, so we make sure everything is sent out via letter, via postcard. Digital is only ever secondary, so we will never send you something primarily via email. You will get it through the post first. And we give you 4 weeks notice from the initial you have been selected to be moved through to actual migration. Now, the reason that 4 weeks is super important is because you can tell us anything we might not know about you. So if, for example, we didn't have your date of birth, we would treat you like a normal customer, we wouldn't know your age, but you could contact us during that 4 weeks and say, well, look, did you know I've got a disability or I'm over 75? And we would go, we didn't. We can make sure it's flagged on the account to get you the services that you qualify for. You're able to defer within reason. So if you're away in 4 weeks on holiday, whatever it is, you can move. There are limits to how far you can defer, as what we can't do is have everyone to defer until, say, November 2026 and just go, oh God, we've got millions of customers in a month to do it. You can also register a third party. So this can be friend, family, relative, carer, whoever, but you can add them onto your account. And they do not have power of attorney or anything like that, but they receive copies of all of the same communications that you will. So it's a level of reassurance. You can go, well, look, I've just had this postcard come through, I don't really get it, or whoever is also a third party will also get notified of that. They'll also get notified about your appointment time, all of that sort of stuff. So it's just a level of security there. Now, we will send you not only kind of more information during that 4 weeks, but any of the extra equipment that you need will also be sent ahead of time. So for example, if you go home and you look at your BT router and say, well, I've not got a phone socket on the back of it, how am I going to do this? Well, we know what you have plugged in, and we would send you a new hub free of charge, and it would come during that 4 weeks to make sure by the time you actually get to your switchover day, all of the equipment has already arrived, so that when your engineer turns up to actually switch over the service, they've got the backup, they've got the hub, and any extra equipment has kind of been sent to you before your switchover day. Now, if you are comfortable to actually do the setup yourself, because if you've got one phone, it is unplug, plug in. On the actual day, there is a 4 to 5 hour overlap between your old service stop working and your new service kicking off. So at some point during that day, you'd pick up your phone that's plugged into a phone socket and you wouldn't have a dial tone. At that point, your digital service is already live, so you could simply plug it into the socket on the back of the hub and you'd be good to go. So if you did want to do that yourself, you are more than able to. You can cancel the engineer and say, I'm more than happy to do it myself. If you do have a go afterwards and go, right, I've Riley got this up, you can then request for an engineer to come back out and fix it again for you afterwards. But yeah, this is all when we select you to move. So if you do absolutely nothing, when we get to you, this is the process. 4 weeks, written letters. The exception to this process is if you proactively choose to do something. So if you go and sign a new contract, or you move to a different provider, at that point you would bypass all of those timescales that I've already talked about and these ones, and you would be moved at the point that you purchased that new deal. It's a bit like when TV went Freeview. After a certain point, you could only buy a TV that had Freeview. Well, you can only buy a phone service today that is digital. No provider will actually still sell you an analog phone service. So, if you do see a great Black Friday deal from Virgin, for example, your only option will be to move to digital at that point. The other exception as well is fibre. So if you move to fibre broadband, so full fibre, the only phone service you can have with full fibre is digital as well. So if you get an offer to say we're going to upgrade you to fibre, included in that will be a digital phone service as well. But if you do nothing, you will get this 4 week kind of process. Now, on awareness, as well as these sorts of events, up until this point, we have run about 850 now of these sorts of events. We've visited every single region of the country, including the islands of Scotland there, and I'm actually back in the Shetland Islands tomorrow. But we have done this, we've got trucks that have been driving around that have gone to local libraries, garden centres, town centres. We have been, myself, in libraries, we've run kind of roadshow events in major cities as well. The idea being is giving as many people the opportunity to come and speak to someone face to face, maybe bring their specific example. What about my phone setup at my house? Or, what about this? I've heard you're going to dig up my drive, those sorts of questions where we can very quickly kind of reassure people of going, the three things: same phone, same number, same cost. It's not tied to your broadband, so you don't have to kind of dig up your drive or anything like that. And to supplement these events, we've actually had events run by partners as well. So Neighbourhood Watch have run about 250 events for us independently, so only with Neighbourhood Watch volunteers, supported by BT, but kind of independently. And we've done this across Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, basically to give people the most number of opportunities possible. As well as events like this, I do always kind of add into my pitch that if any of you do have any other organisations that you are potentially part of that you feel could benefit from a similar sort of talk, my kind of virtual door is always open, and then we're more than happy to kind of run these events. We do kind of them virtually as well as face-to-face as well. Alongside these actual face-to-face events, we've been in local radio, local papers, social media posts, basically everywhere that we can shout about this, we have tried to. And we're not just targeting those that are impacted. So our Connected Together campaign launched a few months ago, and this was targeting the family members and support networks of those that are dependent on their landline. You know, grandkids who might not even know what a landline phone looks like. We did a campaign that was purely focused on them about, right, how can you support Nan through the switchover? You know, is your number saved with 11 digits in her phone to make sure that she can still call you after the switchover? And this was done through, you know, social media platforms. We're doing this again. Bow the Beard and Grime the Gran are fantastic. If you haven't checked them out, please do. They are hilarious. But that is literally just a guy supporting his nan through various different changes, be it technology, be it, you know, booking a GP's appointment, literally does all sorts of content. But it was just super clear, simple messages to say, look, it's not just you that's impacted, it's also your loved ones and family that are as well, so make sure that you are educated to do it. And then again, we've worked specifically with Maurice Stewart. So Maurice Stewart actually launched one of the first BT lines as well, about 35, 40 years ago. Was a victim of scams herself quite recently, so was a victim of a phone scam, and so has done, again, local and national press, radio. She appeared on This Morning. The idea being is just to get this out there as far as possible to reassure people that not only is this genuine and why it has to happen, but that there is support, and a lot of the myths that people might have heard about the service have been kind of dispelled wherever we can. Now, I guess my ask to all of you as to what you can do, we'll make sure that we have a simple one-pager. I do have a few copies, but I did not realise quite how busy it was going to be today. So I've got a few, but we will offer, and U3A will send out digital versions of it afterwards. So we've got a little one-pager. Be aware that if you do have additional needs that you don't believe you've flagged to your provider, as I've said, it's never too early to do that. Please let them know. There are something like 12 different categories, so it can be mental health conditions, it can be physical conditions, it can be financial, basically we have about 12 different categories, as I said, to go through. So please, it's never too early. And if you do look after or know someone that perhaps couldn't come today, but you think they do have Telecare, again, never too early, please, to kind of highlight them. And then, I guess, just make sure that the message is out there. So as I've alluded to, we've worked with as many different charity partners as we can to make sure that they all have a consistent message. But if you are hearing or you are kind of reading those things of, you know, there is scaremongering going out there from certain newspapers around the service, and it's not going anywhere, and it's causing people undue worry. You know, we've had people come to events that have gone, look, I rely on my landline, you can't turn this off, it's my only way of communicating with people. It feels awful to go, well, no, we're not turning it off. You know, if you only have landline, you're keeping just your landline. We're not going to force you to take broadband. And yet they get into their head and they can be so genuinely worried about it. So I guess reassure people going forwards. And then the last point before I open to some Q&As, everything that I have just covered, every single thing, landline broadband, is exactly the same for EE as it is for BT. One's green, one's purple, but everything is exactly the same. The process is the same, the support is the same, the services are identical. Now, PlusNet is different. So I can talk to PlusNet because they're part of the BT group, but what PlusNet are doing is they are not offering a digital phone service. So as I said earlier, there are 650 different service providers in this country. We believe a lot of the smaller ones are just not going to bother because it's really expensive. You get a load of abuse from people kind of saying, why are you taking my landline away? So they're just going, well, do you know what? If you want to keep your phone, just go to BT. And so that is what PlusNet are doing. Now, because PlusNet are part of the BT family, If you're with PlusNet, you'll be offered one of two options. The first is you will be offered a deal with BT for the same price that you are paying for your PlusNet. And they will just move your services over and everything else will stay the same. The number will stay the same, the cost will stay the same, the minutes, all of that stuff will stay the same. Or they will release you from your contract completely penalty free wherever you are, so that you can go to another provider that you might want to. But bear in mind, that provider that you go to will also be digital, but you'll have to make sure they do it. So that is what PlusNet is doing. We believe at the moment that a lot of the other smaller providers are kind of waiting, so sort of your post offices, your shells, they're not necessarily announcing whether or not they will be providing a phone service. What we recommend though is if you are in any doubt and you're with kind of one of the other smaller providers, just get in touch with them and they'll be able to confirm to you whether or not your phone service is digital. And I think we'll make sure this is sent out afterwards, but yeah, there is a host of information out there afterwards. We'll send you YouTube videos, I'll send leaflets, we'll make sure all of that is circulated and there will be a recording of the event as well afterwards.